Okay, I'll get started, but feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, like I said. So welcome to SCORE Southwest Missouri's Tuesdays at 2 webinar series. This is our last Tuesdays at 2 and our last SCORE workshop of the year. So thank you everybody for being here. This is government contracting right for your business? We have our presenter Alan Waldo from Missouri PTAC with us today, and I'll introduce Alan in just a moment. Before I do that, I would like to tell you a little bit about our sponsor and about SCORE and what to expect in today's workshop. This workshop is sponsored by the Springfield Greene County Library. The library offers resources for your business that include market and consumer research databases, such as reference solutions. That's where you can do consumer research, business research, competitor research. Demographics Now, an amazing demographics database where you can, it's the same kind of demographics info that large corporations use. You can use that for free with your library card. We offer meeting and co-working spaces. We have a maker space with a vinyl cutter, laser engraver, heat press, podcasting equipment, and more. And of course, books, audiobooks, newspapers, and magazines in both print and digital formats. And we offer workshops and events for businesses and entrepreneurs, often in partnership with SCORE, like today. My name is Katie Pattison. I am the workshop chair for SCORE Southwest Missouri, and I also happen to work for the Springfield Greene County Library. Just a few details for today's workshop. I'll be your moderator today, so I'll be on here if you have any questions or anything you need to know. Feel free to send me a chat. Love for you to introduce yourself in the chat. Thank you to those of you that have. Our webinar will last about 1 hour today. You're welcome to add your questions to the chat and the Q&A, whatever you're comfortable with throughout the workshop, and I will make sure Alan sees those. Everyone who's registered for this workshop will receive an email within about a week of the event that includes a recording of the event, and I don't think we have any handouts today, so you'll just get that recording, and we'll include Alan's contact info in that as well, so you can get in touch with him afterwards if you'd like to. You'll also receive an evaluation email from SCORE. That is just a few questions, so if you would take a moment to fill that out, we always appreciate that. It helps us to plan workshops for the future. All right, just a little bit about SCORE. So if you are not familiar with SCORE, I would like you to know that SCORE is a nationwide nonprofit that is there for you for the life of your business. SCORE offers mentoring and resources to support you from idea to exit. 3 things to remember when you're thinking about how SCORE can help you. SCORE offers free business advice and mentoring. You can request a SCORE mentor anytime at score.org or at our local chapter website, swmissouri.score.org. We have lots of mentors in this area who are here to help. And if we don't have someone in the area who has a particular expertise that you need for your business situation, you have access to SCORE mentors nationwide. So it's a really great service, partially funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. So that's how we can offer those services for free. SCORE also offers low or no cost business training, just like this workshop you're in today. We do both virtual and in-person workshops here in Southwest Missouri, but you can also access recorded webinars and live webinars from across the US at score.org. And then free business templates and resources. There are some amazing templates on the SCORE website if you're preparing financial reports, anything like that, marketing plan. Definitely check out those resources anytime you're looking for information for your business. These are just a few of our upcoming workshops here in Southwest Missouri. Like I said, this is our last one for the year, but looking out to January, we have, and our next Tuesdays at 2 is Intercultural Communication for Business with Jinsey Fan from MSU. That's on the 10th at 2 p.m. And then our next in-person workshop is called Staying Relevant with Existing Clients with presenter Wendy Lindy, and that is on the 17th at 6 p.m. at the Schweitzer Brentwood Library, or you can also attend that one virtually. You can register or find out more information on any of those at swmissouri.score.org and click on the local workshops page. You can register right there. And everything that SCORE does is possible through the efforts of our volunteers nationwide. We have over 10,000 volunteers serving clients in over 1,500 communities. Volunteering with SCORE is a great way to get involved with and make a difference here in our local business community. So if you have information, or if you are interested in that, I would love for you to reach out to me to tell you about my experience, or any of our SCORE mentors would be happy to sit down with you and talk about their experience. Or you can go to score.org/volunteer to fill out the volunteer application. Once again, here is our chapter website, swmissouri.score.org, where you can find out lots of information. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter. We have Alan Waldo with us today. Alan has been working with the Missouri Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or Missouri PTAC, since 2014. He's helped many different types of clients in various industries in the field of government contracting. This assistance includes registering to do business with the government at various levels, socioeconomic certifications, marketing assistance, past procurement research, and many other topics. Alan has a master's certificate in government contracting from the George Washington University. He's also a certified U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs verification counselor and holds a certified procurement professional certificate from, do we say it like APTAC, well, Alan?
Yeah, APTAC is perfect.
Okay, the National Organization for PTAC. He additionally serves on various committees for APTAC. He received both his bachelor and master's degrees from Southwest Missouri State University, now Missouri State University. And on a personal level, he's been married to his wife, Julie, for almost 36 years and has 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren. And I also found out that Alan is an Eagle Scout, in case that's of interest to anyone. All right, Alan, I will turn it over to you.
Well, perfect. Thank you. So, and just about that time, one of my kids calls. So I'm sorry. Here we go. Sorry about that. I don't get a phone call all day long on my cell phone, but when I take over the microphone, I get the call. So I can't say enough nice things about SCORE. They are always so wonderful to work with. They are a true partner of the PTAC. They do a great job supporting the PTAC, and we try to do everything we can in our power to kind of help out any kind of SCORE clients also. So it is a real pleasure for me to get to talk to you today. So we're going to talk about basically business contracting, or contract with the federal government today and state government. And I am open for questions. I think probably I will not be able to monitor the chat. So I guess if there's a question that's like a dying question everybody needs to ask, or you need to interrupt me for something, feel free. Otherwise, I guess we could maybe wait till the end and we'll take the questions at that point. And if we have a little bit of time, and like I said, I'm not exactly sure how long this is going to take me, but we have a little bit of time, we may even give you all a chance to introduce yourself at the end of the meeting. Because one of the things that's always nice about like an in-person meeting is you get a chance to do a little bit more networking with people. And you know, on these Zoom meetings, if you get a chance to network a little bit, it's never a bad thing. At least maybe find out who else is in the room with you, and maybe try to connect with them later on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, if I may. And are you seeing my screen?
Looks good.
Perfect. Thank you. So I am also going to turn off my camera, because I've noticed that when my camera is on, that many times that I will actually end up actually slowing the process down a little bit. So there we go. So it's government contracting right for your business. And like I say, I'm the Missouri Procurement Technical Assistance Center. If I get my screen to go forward now. Okay, so Missouri PTAC, who we are. So PTAC stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Centers, which you've probably already figured out. The nice thing is we are funded in part through a grant with the Department of Defense. So we were actually under what's called the Office of Small Business Development. We just recently moved to that from the Defense Logistics Agency, and that doesn't really mean a whole lot to you that's not in PTAC, but it kind of means that we've kind of moved up a little bit more importance as far as somebody that the Department of the Defense likes to recognize and use to work. We are then also a member of the University of Missouri's Extension's Business Development Programs, or the BDP. We have 6 offices located across the state. Kansas City, Columbia, West Plains, St. Louis. We got 2 offices, and then Springfield is obviously the office I cover. And so with the coverage area we've got with the 8 or 9 other counselors, we cover all 114 counties plus the city of St. Louis. And then our partners that we have with the BDP, or the Business Development Program, is the TAC, which stands for Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, which has to do with manufacturers that have seen a decrease in sales due to foreign competition. And then what's called the SBDC, or the Small Business Development Center. And I actually share office space with the Small Business Development Center, and SCORE actually shares office space with the Small Business Development Center too. And so I work with both the one down in Joplin, the Missouri Southern State University one, and also the one here in Springfield at Missouri State University. And if you're not familiar with them, they do a fantastic job also. Then our other partners include, for example, SCORE, and then VBOC, which has to do with veterans. It's Veterans Business Outreach Centers. And then obviously the SBA, being the Small Business Administration through the federal government. Once again, I'm having a hard time getting the slide to go forward. Here we go. So the Springfield, Missouri, or I call it Southwest Missouri PTAC, the one I man. We're office in the E-Factory, the Robert Plaster Center for Free Enterprise at 405 North Jefferson. And then I cover somewhere between 21 and about 22 or 23 counties, including Jasper and Newton County, and also Greene County and Christian County. Largest cities and towns that I deal with are Joplin and Springfield. And in my fold of people that I work with, I've got roughly 250 active clients. So I stay pretty busy in just about any industry you could think of. And then realistically, about 80% of all my counseling sessions are actually by Zoom anymore. Since I used to meet with a lot of people over the telephone, a lot more people in person, but since the pandemic, seems like we've gone to Zoom, and it seems to work out pretty well because people don't have to worry about traveling to see me or vice versa. Or if somebody's not feeling 100% great that day, whether it be myself or my client, we don't have to worry about passing or spreading germs among each other. So PTACs are also nationwide, so it's not just Missouri. We don't normally cross state lines. I mean, I make that statement, but I also work with probably roughly 10 clients are actually outside of the state of Missouri, a couple that were in Missouri that moved, and a few more that just found me, and we just connected, and we decided to work together. We have them in all 50 states. They're also DC, Guam, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. There are also Native American PTACs. If I have any Native Americans on the call here and you're dealing with travel type issues, there's a great referral source that I can give you in Oklahoma City with a Native American PTAC over there. I think there's either 10 or 11 Native American PTACs that cover the country. And then our association that Katie had mentioned is the APTAC, or the Association Procurement Technical Assistance Centers. And there's the website or the link right there. And if you go to that website and you hit that link, and if you were from out of state, I noticed we had somebody on here from New York, you can actually find the PTAC that you can work with there in New York. Because I think New York's actually got like 5 or 6 different PTACs. But if you have an interest in working after hearing what the Procurement Technical Assistance Centers can do for you, you can either reach out to me and I can get you connected, and or you can find who you're supposed to work with on that map. And Katie had mentioned that you would get evaluation forms and stuff. I have no problem at all with sharing these slides either, Katie. So we can share these slides too. So what kind of services do we offer? I mean, realistically, if it has to do with government contracting, we can pretty much offer you assistance, advice, and also our expertise. So, I mean, the key things that I usually am thinking about are like government registrations. And if you've been around federal government contracting at all, SAM should be a word that you're probably familiar with, which is a system for award management. We're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail, a little bit more depth here in a little bit. Also Missouri BA'S. So if you have an interest in selling to the state of Missouri, we can help you out with that registration. We can help you out with things that are called capability statements, that are basically one-page resumes, and I've got some additional information on that a bit later in the presentation too. We can help you find bid leads or things to bid on, help you out with the preparation of your bid up to a certain point. I always like to tell people that if you can get it to me a day or two beforehand, do not send it to me at 12 noon if it's due at 1, because it's never going to be looked at. We can help you out with the kind of SOCIO-ECONOMIC certifications, and that has to do with you being a woman owner, a minority business owner, living in what's called a HUBZONE, or a service disabled vet. We've got quite a few slides about that later on too. If it's available, we can kind of show you what the pricing history has been on some of the sales in the past to the government. We can give you what's called FAR guidance, and FAR stands for Federal Acquisition Regulations. That's kind of the written rules, written laws that are in place for federal contracting. Help you out with GSA schedules, what's called the briefings. I mean, literally, if you could think about it, we could probably offer you some assistance in the way of government contracting. So why I use Missouri PTAC? Number one, our expertise. We go through quite a bit of training. In fact, I got off some training regarding the SAM registration about 20 minutes early to join on this training. We collaborate with a lot of other organizations that are out there, including the SCORE, including the SBA. We work closely with other organizations like FEMA, or agencies like FEMA. And then probably the most important reason for using a PTAC, and not just Missouri PTAC, but any PTAC, is there are no costs to use the PTAC. And that is actually a very, very important distinction. Part of that is because there are a lot of commercial firms out there that would love for you to pay them to help you get registered in something like SAM. And, once again, I'm going to keep talking about SAM, but it takes about an hour to go through a SAM registration. Well, now with some of the new rules, a little bit longer than that. But these commercial firms would like to charge you at least over $600 to help assist you in those registrations. I say that is just crazy, partly because some of those folks that are even helping you with the SAM registrations have probably been doing SAM registrations for 2 weeks or less. And we can kind of help guide you through the process and probably get you set up the way you really need to be set up. So I just always tell people, do not pay somebody to help you out with these services. The other thing too is I think I'd be remorse of not saying this, is that PTAC is going under a name change. I've got the name pending there. It probably should just be name change because I believe the Department of Defense has spoken. But our new name that will be occurring sometime in the next 6 to 8 months is probably going to be called Apex Accelerators. And there's actually a website that I found yesterday that specifically for Apex Accelerators. And then you've got the nice little statement there about what the Department of Defense is looking for in our organization. What that's going to mean for me, truthfully, I don't think a whole lot. I think I'm going to continue just doing counseling the way I've been doing it. So the question that we're asking throughout this presentation is why should you consider selling to the government? Well, first off, truthfully, the government buys almost everything. So I've got some pictures here, some slides here of things that I've seen federal solicitation wise and some more local. So for example, you've got the guy playing bagpipes kind of in the center of the slide. I saw a solicitation about a year or two ago that was looking for professional bagpipe players that could teach people how to play the bagpipes for military funerals. We've got a very nice lawnmower beneath that. I mean, other than lawnmowing services that they will pay for, they also will a lot of times buy lawn equipment. I've got the cemetery there, kind of bottom center. They have a lot of solicitations go out to maintain the veteran cemeteries. I've got the cafeteria services, kind of the upper right. I've got laundry services. One of the larger contracts at Fort Leonard Wood is for the laundry services. Obviously, we got computers. They've got, if you see the sea turtle, that may be of some interest to you. About 6 years ago now, I saw a solicitation where they were looking for a Hawaiian veterinarian that could go out and help beach sea turtles. Worship leaders. So if you are of the Christian faith, you are of the Catholic faith, you are of the Jewish faith, you are of the Muslim faith, you name whichever faith you want. A lot of times these will be contracts for you to actually come and conduct the religious services on post for people of that faith. I've got crickets in the very bottom center. That is not a federal contract, at least that I've noticed, but the city of Springfield will put out on about a bi-yearly basis a solicitation to buy crickets to feed the critters at the Dickerson Park Zoo. So if you can imagine it, the federal government and the state government and local government so many times will buy it. Now I say that, and out of the other side of my mouth, though, there are certain things that the government does not buy. Number one, marijuana dispensaries. Now with Missouri just passing legal marijuana, we still cannot even assist with that because we are funded by a federal source. And at this point, marijuana is still against federal law. So we cannot even help out a company with that. Plus they're not buying it. And they may buy some CBD oil or maybe some marijuana through some of the large drug companies. But if you've got a dispensary, there's really not any kind of market there for you, at least currently. If you own like a pawn shop or boutique shop or a typical gift shop, then normally there's not going to be any kind of government contracting. If you have a restaurant that doesn't offer catering, you're probably not going to become a government contractor. Personal services such as a massage therapist, a beautician, barbers, nail salon, typically are not going to be government contracts, even though I did actually see something for some of the Capitol office buildings about 6 or 7 years ago where they were looking for barbers to come staff the Capitol office buildings with all the staff there. Entertainment venues, so if you own a theater or a bar or pool hall, probably not. Clothing stores kind of depend. I mean, if you're selling professional type wear for maybe police officers or fire departments, maybe. Vape shops are probably out. And so it's just kind of an et cetera. But, for example, I work with quite a few car repair places, and car shops a lot of times can get government contracts. So it's probably one of those things where if you're thinking, hey, would this potentially make sense for me? Then maybe you and I should have a conversation. We could do some research to find out perhaps if the federal government, state government, or local government ever buys the services or the products that you're offering. And don't just think federal. I mean, just in the Springfield area alone. I mean, this is just a really small percentage of government buyers just in the area. I mean, obviously Missouri State University, Ozarks Technical Community College, Springfield Greene County Library District. So you can count the Christian County Library District, Ozark School District, Nixa School District, Nixa, Missouri, City of Springfield, Bodark. You name the town, you name the county, you name the school district. And those are governmental buyers. So never, ever, ever forget or underestimate the power of some of these other buyers to potentially buy your product. So first thing, we're going to talk a little bit more probably federal than anything else, because I probably deal more with federal than anything else, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Missouri and some of the local certifications. But if you have an interest in ever selling to the federal government, you must get registered in SAM, and SAM stands like any other acronym, and there are thousands of acronyms in government contracting, but stands for System for Award Management. It is the first place where if you want to sell to the federal government, you must stop and get registered in SAM. There is a multi-step process to get registered in SAM. The first thing, if you're considering to become an LLC and you've not filed with the Missouri Secretary of State's office or your applicable Secretary of State's office, I would recommend filing with them. I've got a link here directly going to the Secretary of State's office for the state of Missouri. If you're a sole proprietorship, sometimes getting a fictitious name may not be a bad idea. So if Alan Waldo wanted to open up some type of business, it might be Alan Waldo would be my sole proprietor name, and then maybe a fictitious would be Waldo Enterprises or something. Obtain a federal ID number. You can get that through the irs.gov. So that gives you your federal ID number for filing your taxes or paying payroll with. And then you have to get what's called a unique entity identifier, which unfortunately has turned into a real pain in the neck to get. And then you can actually go through the actual registration in SAM. And obviously when you're registering SAM, there's other information you must provide, including your federal ID number, bank account information, and then what your average sales have been over the last couple of years. So one of the advantages, though, to getting registered in SAM is getting into what's called the SBA'S Dynamic Small Business Search. I've got the little yellow highlight box on the right there, and truthfully, it's the main tool used by contract officers to find contractors to work with. So why don't we say that I work for the National Park Service, and I am looking for a company that might be able to do lawn mowing for me. One of the first places I'm going to look is I'm going to look in the small dynamic business search and see if there are lawn mowing companies out there that may be able to provide that service. And then I am probably going to make contact with these companies and say, either A, would you like to make a bid, depending on how much the contract's going to be, would you like to either bid with me directly, or B, this is getting ready to be posted on the federal government website. Would you please look for this? Because I would like to see you bid on this project. So the SBA is Small Business Administration, Small Dynamic Business Search. And the nice thing is that both contracting officers and larger businesses can search by state, by your keywords for your business. They can look by a capability narrative. They can look by county. They can look by what's called NAICS codes, and NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System codes, which is the code that is assigned to just about any type of work that you can do. So for example, if you're a landscaper, that code is 561730 off the top of my head, could be 720, but it's a code that assigns the type of work that is being done. So like a physician's office would be different than a construction company, which would be like 236220. Farmers would begin with 1. So but they can find companies to work with based upon what your NAICS codes are. So this is kind of the lead sheet for the Small Dynamic Business Search. If I'm going to go in today and do a search on this, this goes down. You can kind of this on the right side there. This little flip part here goes down quite a long way from that a person can do additional searches on it. But I am going to give an example, and this was done back a couple of years ago. I probably need to update this example, but I decided to do a search at one point for 561720, which is janitorial services. And I was looking at the state of Alaska. And if I am a contracting officer and I'm trying to find a company to work with, I've got 2 different companies. I put in the number 561720, and I got Expert Cleaning, owned by Miss Gwenda Gilbert out of Fairbanks, Alaska. And I've got Shelley's Cleaning, owned by Michelle Moles out of Sitka, Alaska. And if I am a contracting officer, the odds of me calling Gwenda Gilbert and realizing that Fairbanks and Sitka are nowhere near each other. But if I was in Fairbanks area and I needed to work with somebody, why don't we say that Miss Moles was up in Fairbanks too? I would probably contact Gwenda Gilbert because I can actually tell the type of work that she does. So Expert Cleaners provide general and specialized cleaning, maintenance of commercial and residential buildings, yada, 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 including carpet cleaning, vent and duct cleaning. The employees work in a professional manner, use the right tools for each job, and finish it competently and securely. And I have absolutely no idea what Shelley's Cleaning's expertise is. So depending on the business owner, we're going to spend probably about 10 minutes talking about different socioeconomic certifications. But most companies that I deal with are automatically going to qualify what they call small business. A good number of folks that I work with are woman-owned small businesses. Probably a little bit lesser percentage. I would love working with the veterans, but our service disabled veteran-owned small business. And then basically either 8A and or small disadvantaged business, which is basically business owners that are minority, so African American, Hispanic, Asian American, Native American. And then it's like Pacific Asian American, which I kind of believe would fall into kind of Guam or Hawaii or perhaps the Philippines. And then the other part's called HUBZONE. We're going to talk a little bit more individually about each one of these below as we continue through the presentation. And the fact sheet, you're going to notice also in each one of these things here that the numbers that I have behind them. So for example, small business, under federal law, the US government's supposed to buy at least 23% of all federal contracts from small businesses. And then of that 23%, they're supposed to buy at least 5% from women-owned small businesses, 3% from the service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And then the minority-owned businesses and small disadvantaged businesses, it's at 10. I got 10% plus because it's going up to 11%. And that's based upon the executive order that President Biden signed back almost a year ago today regarding trying to increase the amount of percentages. I think the ultimate goal is to get up to 15%. And then HUBZONE's at 3%. And of these certifications, the ones that are probably most valuable right now, HUBZONE, the federal government hardly ever meets those goals. Woman-owned small business was the first time that they've not met this goal for many, many years. It was just last year. And then the 10%, it was 5%. He brought it up to 10%. It sounds like a huge jump, and yes, it is, but they were already at about 10%. So, but I think as they continue to grow to the 15%, I think being a small disadvantaged business or an 8A business is going to become more and more valuable, because that number from 10 to 15% is quite a big jump. So if you fall within one of these categories, it may also be worth us having a conversation too. So what are the basic requirements to get certified? Well, number one, you got to prove that you're a U.S. citizen. So you got to be U.S. citizen owned. You can do that by a birth certificate. You can do that by a passport. You've got to show that you've got to be small in your primary NAICS code. Like I said, the majority of the businesses I work with are small. The NAICS codes are set up by the SBA. And just to throw a few numbers out at you. So for example, if you're a janitorial company, and I believe the NAICS code number for that's like $16.5 million. So as long as you're not generating more than $16.5 million as a janitorial company, you are going to be considered to be a small business. So if you look around the Springfield area, there are very few companies that are going to be large businesses. The ones off the top of my head, Bass Pro, based upon the numbers of employees I have, obviously the colleges, based upon the numbers of employees they have, Kraft Food, based upon the number of employees. But when you start, and probably O'Reilly, based upon their sales numbers. And, you know, I'm sure we can all come up with probably another 5 or 10 examples, but even some of the larger companies here in town, that you may be thinking, oh, they're large, they're big. They may actually be considered to be small business by the SBA. You've got, as the owner, got to prove that you've got the skills and license, if applicable, to run the business. So in other words, if you are a carpenter or you want to open up a construction company and you own a hammer and you've never really done a construction project in your life, they will see that through that pretty quickly and say, yeah, I don't think you're actually able to run this business until you get a little bit more skills as a carpenter. You've got to, as the owner, have the day-to-day control. So in other words, nobody else can pretty much tell you what to do. You've also got to have strategic control. So you don't have to go out there and ask permission from anybody. You're the owner of the company. You're going to make the decisions. You've got to unconditionally own at least 51% of it. Typically, it's not normally ever going to be a franchise. That's somewhat dependent upon the franchise agreement. But most franchise agreements are written in favor of the franchise and not the franchisee. And then I talk about for what's called the EDWSB, which is an economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, or the 8A/small disadvantaged business. There are income and asset guidelines, and I've got that on the next slide. And then the HUBZONE, which is 2 slides ahead, is based upon the location of the business and where your employees live. So the nice thing is, if you're a home-based business and you live in a HUBZONE, then you pretty much automatically qualify. So economically disadvantaged. And we'll talk about that. This will be the main slide we talk about. And there's actually another slide a little bit later on talks about a disadvantaged business enterprise. And those numbers are a little bit different. But the federal government sees you as being economically disadvantaged if you do not meet these guidelines. Number one, your personal net worth's got to be below $850,000. And they just recently, over about the last month or month and a half, raised that from $750,000 to $850,000. And that does not include your primary residence. That does not include your untouchable retirement account, and that does not include the value in your business concerns. Your average 3-year adjusted gross yearly salary has got to be less than $400,000, and then the fair market value of all your assets, including your home and business, has got to be less than $6.5 million. So that's how they define economically disadvantaged. I do work with a couple of higher wealthy people that do not meet those numbers, but that kind of shows you where the federal government sees somebody as being economically disadvantaged. So yes, I am economically disadvantaged personally. The SBA's HUBZONE stands for historically underutilized business zone. Typically, these are areas that have a higher level of unemployment and a lower level of income. So if you are a business that's located in basically North Springfield, and I've got a map coming up showing the Springfield map on what qualifies as a hub zone. If your business is located in a hub zone, and then at least 35% of your employees live in a hub zone, does not have to be the same hub zone, you would be able to qualify to become a hub zone business. And I had mentioned this earlier too, but truthfully, the biggest advantage that I see with hub zone is that the government normally does not meet the 3% goal. And kind of off the top of my head too, we've been mentioning about being a woman-owned business or hub zone business or a minority-owned business or a service-disabled veteran-owned business. If you fall within 2 or 3 of those categories, so what we say that you're a minority, that you're a woman-owned business owner, and you're also in a hub zone, the federal government gets to mark 3 boxes. So probably the more certifications you can have, the better off you will be. So I mentioned the Springfield hub zone. This is straight from the SBA map as of yesterday. Best way I can describe it, I believe this is sunshine, where the bottom of my mouse is going back and forth. I mean, the Fast Night District kind of goes over the Russell Wilson State Park, or City Park, Highway 44, Highway 65, the West Bypass, and then kind of a random area down kind of close to Bradford Park. So, you know, if you look at this map and realizing that Springfield kind of extends beyond probably about the size of the circle, I'm going to say at least 50% of Springfield is considered to be a hub zone. So if you have a business in Springfield, you think about selling to the federal government, it may be worth having the conversation to find out if you're actually in a hub zone and you would qualify. So other certifications through the state of Missouri, they've got the state of Missouri offers a women business enterprise and a minority business enterprise, and you can be a woman/minority business enterprise. You also become a service-disabled veteran enterprise, and then MoDOT or the Lambert Airport or KCI, and even though Springfield Airport does not approve of these, but they still like to work with DBEs and ACDBEs, and ACDBE stands for Airport Concessionaire Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. So you sell stuff to the airport, but you can get certified that. Now I've mentioned the word set aside, and I probably have got to learn not to use that word. It's kind of one of those words where I assume everybody knows what I'm talking about. What a set aside means is that the federal government can set aside a contract specifically for a woman-owned small business. So unless you're a woman-owned small business, you cannot bid on that contract, or specifically for an 8A business, or specifically for a hub zone business. That means that the federal government can say, we are setting aside this contract specifically for this type of business. The state of Missouri does not offer set-aside contracts, but what they do offer is they will a lot of times give bonus points to companies that have met these certification criteria. And the certification criteria are very, very much the same as the certification criteria for the federal government. In fact, you've got to supply a lot of the same documents. Now, the disadvantaged business enterprise, I usually like to think of that more as being a MoDOT program. That is based upon being both socially and economically disadvantaged, and social disadvantage in this case are either a minority or under the definition of disadvantage, you could also be a woman business owner, which is a lot different than what we've been talking about with the federal government. And then under economic disadvantage, they basically want to say, are you worth less than $1.392 million? And if you are, then they consider you to be economically disadvantaged. Moving on. Think about certifications, though. They do not guarantee contracts. I mean, realistically, you've still got to compete to earn them. The government wants to make sure that you actually can perform on the contract. The government buyers are very risk adverse, and they do not like to take chances with companies that they do not believe that can fulfill the contract requirements. And I've had folks come to my office before and say, hey, I've been a woman-owned small business for 6 months. I should have a contract. And it's kind of a painful conversation, but it's like, okay, we've got to work on a few other parts of your business before you can be guaranteed anything. So just because you're a woman-owned business does not mean you're going to get a contract. Two major sites to find solicitations. I got the sam.gov site, but there's also a site called Missouri Buys. If you're interested in working with the state of Missouri, you can go there and see what types of solicitations are open, but you also have got to get registered in Missouri Buys. It's a little bit like the SAM registration. Takes about 45 minutes. And once again, I've probably have done, probably over 100 of those. I'd be more than happy to help anybody with the Missouri Buys registration too. So if you're interested in selling to the government at just about any level, you don't just get a SAM registration and believe people are going to come to you. You've got a network. You've got to be out there selling yourself like you would through normal business contacts. You got a network. You got a capability statement, which we've got on the next slide. I mentioned that earlier. Usually having a website is important. I've got a large business that I work with in Joplin, Missouri by the name of Eagle Picture. Eagle Picture sells high-tech batteries. They sell it to NASA. They sell it to the Department of Defense. And their small business liaison, Susan Pugsley, is one of the nicest human beings you will ever meet. But one of the things she always tells me is, she says, Alan, I do not like to do business with a business that does not have a website. I want to see exactly what it is they do, and I want to make sure they can actually put a website together. Having brochures, business cards, having the elevator speech. And I think most people know the elevator speech, but that's at 30 or 45 seconds where you tell about yourself, tell about your business. I usually recommend email addresses too. I mean, having at abccompany.com or waldoenterprises.com beats Yahoo or Gmail or Hotmail any day of the week. Definitely beats AOL. If you've done articles or presentations, white papers on talking about your product, it's good to have those also. And then I probably should have taken this off, but there's actually a thing in the federal government called unsolicited proposals that falls under the FAR 15.6. And that's like a whole different topic. Like I said, I probably should have taken that off the slide. So here's an example of a capability statement. This is by a company by the name of DeLong Foot and Leg Center. They are located in DeLand, Florida. I guess you say that, DeLand. It kind of gives what a capability statement is going to look like. It talks about the 5 main sections of capability statement. I've got an active link on there. I cannot swear to you that active link will still bring you that capability statement, but it's going to give you the core competencies. It's going to give you the differentiators. It's going to talk about your past performance. The differentiators is what makes you special. Going to have the contact information, who to contact, and then it's also should have on there somewhere your business information. I've got DUNS. I should probably change to UEI, but most of these capability statements I show are showing DUNS number, but the UEIs are what's being used now. So my closing thoughts, like I said, the very beginning presentation was are you ready to be a government contractor, or is government contracting right for your business? What I like to say is, number one, we have to determine if the federal government or the state government or the county governments buy the service or product that you sell. I mean, if they're not buying what you're selling, then you can try it all day long, but I'm going to say you can spend your time better probably working on another sale someplace else. Can you sell your product or service at a competitive price to the government? Now, everybody's always heard about the, I don't know, $1,000 toilet seats and the $600 hammers. Those are kind of unusual and kind of few and far between. That $600 hammer was probably created out of some type of special metal that had probably go on the space shuttle, or maybe it did not want it to be have any type of magnetism about it. I mean, there's probably a reason why that hammer costs $600. I always tell people that you can usually expect a lower return on investment when you sell to the government. It, like I say, it's pretty competitive to get into government sales. Have you sold commercially? The government wants to make sure that commercial folks are buying your products first, commercially and or residentially. Do you have the resources to sell to the government? So in other words, do you have the time? Do you have the staff? Do you got the equipment? You got the inventory? Keeping in mind, there's something out there called liquidated damages. Sometimes on projects that are very time specific, say we need to have this done in 180 days. If it gets to be out, you've been awarded the contract, you get to day 181, they may start subtracting $1,000 a day from you for not having it done on time. So I usually like to tell people, if you're going to bid on a contract or bid on a solicitation, be really, really sure that you can actually deliver that product to the government. How do you feel about subcontracting? My largest contractor is a gentleman that owns a cybersecurity firm. He does about $20 to $25 million a year in federal contracting. He will be the first one to tell you that if he had not been agreeable to be a subcontractor to begin with, he would not be in business today. So if you're comfortable with subcontracting, in fact, that's usually one of the best ways that you can start getting into government contract is through subcontracting. And then what are online reviews saying about you? So if I start snooping around, if I'm a contracting officer and I start snooping around the internet to find out what I can find out about Waldo Enterprises, Am I going to have a bunch of dissatisfied customers, or am I going to have people that are actually happy with me? It's something you probably want to ask yourself, because if you've got a bad reputation out there, the odds of the government buying from you is pretty slim, because trust me, contracting officers will pay attention to what the reviews are saying about you. So if interested, I always encourage people to don't quit learning. Industry days, trade journals, online research. I've spent a good part of my day online doing research on various topics, talking to contracting officers, talking to program managers that actually help direct what's going to be bought, talking to local buyers. I mean, so for example, the library, and Katie, I'd maybe throwing you under the bus on this one, but you know, if you've got an interest in doing business with the library system, Katie may or may not have some inside thoughts on kind of what the library system is buying. Mentor relationships, finding larger contractors to work with. And then I'm going to kind of brag about Missouri PTAC and the trainings we offer, whether it be like a presentation a day, and we've got another slide on this, but called GOVOLOGY. If you become a Missouri PTAC client, we've got about 150 courses out there that you can take for free on federal contracting. And that's some of the contracts. So we've got part of GOVOLOGY. They've got kind of a progressive learning as far as how to do business with the federal government. Got get started to doing market research, to becoming certified, how to do your SAM.gov profile properly. And I'll tell you right now, work with PTAC, how to market yourself. I mean, you can kind of see the different things that are out there. I did leave one or two off of there. For example, I think there's one on GSA schedules, and maybe something else I looked at and said, yeah, it's probably not overly applicable. Become a Missouri PTAC or / Apex client. Got our expertise, the power of it. I am the first person to tell you that if you've asked me a question I do not have an answer to, I will tell you I do not know that answer, but give me time to research. And if I am having a hard time finding that research, I will ask my other colleagues in Missouri PTAC. And then if I have to, I will actually go out there and talk to attorneys and or other people across the country that are also PTAC counselors. I like the personal relationships with people. This gives me working. I know Katie talks about working with SCORE. You get a lot of personal satisfaction from helping out somebody. I personally get a lot of satisfaction from helping out clients. That's if I was not working with nice people, I'm not sure how long I've been doing this job. I've been at it for a little bit over 8 years, and at this point, I'm planning on retiring from it. We got the GOVOLOGY service we just talked about, and then we're the right price, being taxpayer supported. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. We're going to open it up to questions here in a minute. I'll probably look at the chat box here in a second, but there's my contact information. Probably the best way to get hold of me is through that email, that waldoaj@missouri.edu. I work from home about 2 to 3 days a week. I work in the office 2 to 3 days a week, but I seem to be consistently on email just about all the time. So that's usually the best way to reach out to me. So after going through this day, if I piqued your curiosity, you'd like to set up a time to talk, feel free to email me. I will tell you right now that University of Missouri basically closes down from just about Christmas time until January 3rd. So I am quickly moving into holiday mode. So realistically, I'm probably not going to be booking meetings until early January, because I'm pretty booked out until I leave the office. But I would like to get you on the calendar. We have a chance to talk. My first week in January is filling up quickly, but I would love to have a chance to visit with you. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to look at the chat box real fast, unless you've got something specifically.
We do have a few questions in there, Alan,
Good.
and I can pose those to you.
Yep.
Let's see here. So Harold asked, do I need to have acquired any specific certification to get the rights to start making government contracts or bids?
No, actually, no, not at all. Keep in mind that the certifications give you a little bit of advantage. Not a huge advantage. I probably, if I were to look at my client listing, I'm going to say probably only about, I always hate to quote numbers, I'm usually going to be wrong, but probably somewhere around a third actually qualify for someone just being a small business. So no. And there are a lot of successful contractors out there that don't have any kind of certification whatsoever.
Great. And then we have another question here from Nigel, and I'll just invite anyone to add your questions to the chat right now. If you'd like to ask them out loud, you can use that raise hand feature, and I'm happy to unmute you, or you can put them in the chat or Q&A. Nigel's question is, what's the best entry path you see for someone interested in subcontracting from experience?
Couple different things. I mean, number one, I think even though you do not have to be registered in SAM to become a subcontractor, because that's only for people doing prime contract work, I think it's always good to be in SAM, because then you can be found by prime contractors. Plus, I think they see you being a little bit more of a legitimate business if you're registered in SAM. The second way then is by doing some research to find out who's actually been selling the product or service you're interested in getting involved in, because then you can approach that company directly and say, here's the product or service that I've got, and here's the advantages I can bring to the table in trying to help you in trying to become a subcontractor for you. Keep it in mind that prime contractors are a little bit scared of using new subs too, just because they are held responsible by the federal government, the state government, to make sure that whatever work they're doing is done right. And they really can never say, well, it's my subcontractor's fault. The contracting officer is going to say, yeah, I don't really care. It's your contract and you can work with whoever you want to subcontracting wise, but you got to make your subcontractors perform. So that's probably the best thing I would say. You know, having a good website is always good, because they're going to find you that way. And, you know, truthfully, having some, if you're eligible for any certifications, probably being certified too, because the example I gave you a little while ago about Eagle Picture, with them being a large prime contractor, they have got to meet certain subcontracting goals with the federal government, and they've got to report those goals. So the federal government says, okay, for example, Eagle Picture, how many HUBZONE contracts are you awarded? How many HUBZONE companies are you using? How many woman-owned companies are you using? How many small businesses are you using? And they've got to actually have to report that. And I don't know what the big hammer is by the federal government, but they can pretty much choose to quit working with a company because of not meeting the goals, or they might actually withhold money from that company without meeting the goals. So I don't know if I've confused the question, but that sounds like it may be good for us to have a further conversation about it.
Great. Right. I think that's all the questions I have in the chat right this moment, but I'll invite people to add your questions to the chat if you'd like, or raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question out loud or talk a little bit about your situation. We do have a few minutes left to handle those questions.
And, you know, the other thing too, if you'd like to, Katie, I'll leave this up to you, but I mean, we could kind of go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves verbally real fast. I know a lot of times people aren't monitoring the chat, but I realize that takes a little step of faith, because people start hanging up. No, I'm teasing. To kind of do that.
Yeah, they're like, they're gone.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking to anybody.
Yeah. No, but if you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your situation and why you're here, maybe Alan might have some good advice for you. If you put that raise hand feature you'll see down in the bottom, that will let me unmute you.
So Harold, I see your statement there in chat. You definitely would have, as being a U.S. veteran, the question I'd have to ask you is, are you service disabled? Being Latino heritage, it allows you to become a small disadvantaged business. But one of the things that probably drove me nuts about this job 8 years ago when I started was that the federal government seems to recognize service disabled vets, but don't always recognize just veteran-owned small businesses. The one exception to that is the VA will have set-asides for both the veteran-owned small business and service disabled veteran-owned small businesses.
Great.
If you haven't started a business yet, or we disappeared.
Oh.
Here you go. If you haven't started a business yet, but are considering would it.
Oh, here, let me read that one to
you.
you.
Yeah, please. It keeps going away.
Yeah, Jessica's question was, if you haven't started a business yet, but are considering it, would you have words of wisdom for where to seek government opportunities?
Probably the first word of wisdom I would have is that if you're setting up the business, you're looking at setting up with somebody else, you might want to consider the ownership of it. So if you're wanting to become a woman-owned small business, be sure that you clearly own 51% of the business and that you clearly can make the decisions in the business. But as far as seeking really, it's kind of hard to say this, but most of the time, brand new businesses are going to have a hard time getting in with the government. A little bit depending on kind of what level, what you're wanting to do. I mean, if you're wanting to sell, I don't know, if you're wanting to sell high-tech armor of some type, the odds you becoming a government contractor are almost none. But if you're wanting to get involved in landscaping or something, you've got the insurance requirements and stuff, then it's probably worth getting registered now. Even though I'm going to encourage people, even if you're a brand new business, it does not hurt to get registered, because I always like to kind of equate that to fishing. I'm not much of a fisherman, but unless you got a pole in the water, you're never going to catch a fish. Unless you're eligible to do business with the federal, or unless you sign up to do business with the government, you're never going to get a government contract.
Yeah. Nigel had another question. Do you know any cybersecurity companies that work for the government and specifically look for those certified subcontractors?
So the one I was talking about, the cybersecurity company I was talking about, he's a service disabled veteran-owned small business. He is teetering on becoming a large business. if you would like to send me an email, I don't really want to bring the name out because we try to keep our clients kind of under wraps with you. I guess I brought an equal picture, but I've been given lots of permission many times from Susan to bring up equal picture's name. If you want to connect with me, I can always connect with this company and say, hey, if you want to have a conversation with him, he is always willing to help out small business and have a conversation. He's a very nice guy and an excellent educator.
Harold's question was, how can I become a small veteran business certified in the state of Missouri? And he mentions he just became certified with the Better Business Bureau about a month ago.
So, Harold, can I ask a follow-up question if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat? What type of business do you own? Is it landscaping? Is that you, Harold? No.
Commercial cleaning, he said.
Okay. So with the federal government, what's happening is they are changing from the VA used to do the certification process, now going to be taken over by the SBA, and they turned off the switch of the VA back, I think, October 24th, and they're hoping to turn the switch on with the SBA as of probably the 2nd, 3rd of January. I could be a little gun shy on that. It'll probably take a little while to get some of the kinks out of the system, but you have to go through. So if you want to be certified by the federal government, you have to get registered in SAM. Then you will have to fill out the application process for the SBA. Now, one thing I did not mention in my presentation is that the state of Missouri has what they call federal excess property. And through the federal excess property, there are certain types of businesses and or organizations get their hands on that property. One of the groups that can get their hands on the excess property are people that have been certified by will be by the SBA as being a veteran-owned small business and services HIPAA veteran-owned small business. And I've had other slides and other presentations that I've shown, for example, like you can get a tractor. At least on that slide, it seemed like around $2,000 to get a tractor. So there may be a reason, if nothing else, even commercial cleaning. I mean, there may be buckets and vacuum cleaners and things like that you get your hands on for a lot less money than you would normally have to pay. So, Harold, my recommendation would be probably reach out to me maybe sometime early to mid-January. I can have a conversation, talk about that a little bit further.
Great. Another question here. What if you need equipment in order to fulfill the contract requirements? If the funds from the contract will help with that equipment, such as for a landscaping company, will they still do business with you, or do you need to apply for grants and get it ahead of time?
Well, so normally they're going to want to make sure you've got the equipment to actually do the job that you're bidding on anyway. Sometimes the solicitation will ask for specific types of equipment or say, what type of equipment do you have to do the job? If you get awarded a contract, and keep it in mind, sometimes these contracts start pretty quick, but if you get awarded the contract, sometimes you can go to a bank or maybe through the SBA, get an SBA backed loan to get the money for that contract to help you actually fulfill the requirements. But if you're serious about buying equipment, I'd recommend probably talking to your local banker anyway, because like I say, a lot of times they're going to want to make sure you got the right equipment before they'll actually let you do the job.
Yeah. I think we've got some pretty good resources on the SCORE website about funding, different types of funding. Another question, can you do government contracts with an owner-operator trucking company, but just one truck is involved, or is this too small of a company?
It's kind of funny because I last night, in fact, I was with this guy an email today, but last night I had a conversation with a gentleman that's actually done some driving for, I think Fort Leonard Wood. He's a single truck driver. So yeah, I mean, you as a single truck, it's kind of hard to find the jobs. And so I think he does a lot of his work through the brokers. But realistically, sometimes the government doesn't quite pay as much. But I kind of hate to put the carrot out there because it's too late to take this carrot. But on a yearly basis, FEMA goes out, for example, and has a open season for trying to fill out a solicitation, become a FEMA truck driver. So if you have a disaster down in Florida, many times they're going to be looking for individual truck drivers that can drive down to Florida. The reason why I say it's too late is you've got to already have a cage code, and I think the solicitation date ends Monday, I believe, and without the cage code, you can't even make the bid. But next year around this time, they'll be doing the same thing. Plus, I ran into a company about a month and a half ago at my national conference by the name of Crowley, and Crowley is a large transportation company, and they at least are talking a really good game and have an application process out there for working with smaller trucking companies to help them meet some of their goals too. So long question, long answer to a short question. Yeah, there may be an opportunity out there for you.
Very good. We've got time for probably just a couple more questions if there are any others.
How can government work with nonprofits? So I've got to be a little careful working with the nonprofit because under the terms of our the terms of our work or our grant is I'm not supposed to work with nonprofits. Now, with that being said, I will occasionally work with a nonprofit to help get registered and get like a cage code or something. But the government can buy from nonprofits. I mean, they absolutely can. You just have to be registered like everybody else does. Like I say, there's a couple small nonprofits that I've actually assisted at times. Like I say, I can't focus a whole lot of time on it because I've got to meet my goals and I cannot count those toward my goals. But you know, I have a hard time saying no to people. I really do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamil, you asked that question earlier about farms. So the question here is how can governments work with minority farmers? And I think Jamil asked a question earlier about farming.
So, and I'm not overly familiar with this program, but I know the USDA has some farm subsidies out there. And we occasionally help somebody get registered in SAM for the USDA. I do have, for example, a minority-owned company, which I just helped get registered in SAM, that's going to be doing goats and stuff. And the general thought I've got on that is that there is absolutely no guarantee. The odds of the government buying is not great, but depending on what you're growing, I've seen Fort Leonard Wood buy rabbits before for survival training. I'm kind of thinking the same thing with goats. So, you know, as far as food itself, you'd probably be better off maybe working as a subcontractor with a larger producer. So if you're a one-owned minority farm, there may be large companies out there that are going to have that would specifically want to work with you, you know, and whether or not they actually are going to sell to the federal government. I'd say a lot of large companies do sell to the federal government, but that may be an option to look at.
Okay, great. I think that about takes our time. So hopefully you all will reach out to Alan if you need more information. We will send your contact information out there, Alan,
Perfect.
with a follow-up email, and we'll send a recording of this so everybody can rewatch it if they need to. And I hope we'll see y'all in the new year and you have good holidays.
And I went the whole time without singing Christmas carols. I'm impressed.
Good job, Alan. Good job. We'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.